right now, but based in the Kanazawa area.
And today we're going to be talking about some of Lauren's recent off the beaten track trips around the Hiroshima area and other off the beaten areas in Japan worth exploring, as well as some of your amazing restoration and reform projects in your Minka, which I believe you're in right now, right?
Yeah, yeah, in the living room, the one almost finished room.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your company, Okuni?
Yeah, definitely. So Okuni is a small travel company that I run together with my business partner, Julia Maeda. She's based in Tokyo and I'm based here. And we both have about a 10-year background in travel. And we both also have a passion for more of the off the beaten track destinations, as you mentioned. Julia's husband is originally from Aomori and from living over here and on the Noto Peninsula, and also other work I've done around Shikoku and Sado Island, places like that. We really wanted to start a company that would help draw people away from Tokyo and Kyoto and show them that there's a whole country besides those two destinations. So we started Okuni. Our target clients are kind of high end because we wanted to keep it very small. So we figured fewer deep trips worked better for us than many small trips. So for that, and to still earn a living, we decided to sort of target a higher rate. But it's worked out well because one thing you might know about Japan is to travel, it helps to either be like a backpacker or millionaire. It's difficult to get off the beaten track in between, because you need a driver and you need a translator usually, and to get access into all those nooks and crannies, you need connections. So you can fling on your backpack and just go for it. But if you're coming overseas for your 2-week holiday with your family, it helps to have the budget to allow you access to these areas. And what we love is that these clients often get so passionate about the places we take them and the artisans that we introduce that they spend money. I mean, they spend serious money, which makes the area, know that it's doing the right thing, and it helps support local artisans and local farmers and local little inns that maybe don't see that much traffic. So it kind of works out for everybody.
I'm
Yeah.
showing pictures right now of your recent trip to Fukuyama, and you went
Oh,
to Kohei Nawa's building. It's gorgeous.
it's incredible. Yeah, if you haven't gotten over there, it's kind of arc-like, but just gorgeous architecture. And you go inside and it's pitch black, and you have a little flashlight and you find your seat. Only about 20 people at a time, but once you're in there, it's just black. And then slowly, what seems to be way in the distance, you start to see water and you see light. And it's about a 25-minute just kind of light and sound meditation experience. And really cool. And then you step out and you're in this, just surrounded by this beautiful traditional Japanese garden and then a huge Zen Buddhist temple and compound. So it's kind of cool to have the contrast of the contemporary and the traditional. Even on a rainy day, it was gorgeous. So,
Definitely. And your pictures showing even in the garden, so it looks like a traditional manicured garden, and then in the front a bit more modern art type rock with formations that look like black snakes coming out.
yeah,
Amazing.
they've done that on purpose. It's in the yucca family, I think she said, but they cut it continually so that it never grows and it just stays, yeah, like these weird little, I don't know, like lots of Nessies or something kind of moving through there. But there were people there with kids, and not. I don't have children. I'm an aunt, but I didn't raise them. So when I saw small children, I was thinking, 25 minutes in the dark with like a 6-year-old, really? But these kids were amazing. As Julia pointed out later, I had to unzip my jacket at one point. She's like, I didn't hear the kids. I heard you. Right. Um, so obviously, it's a great destination for families and adults and everybody. So.
Right. And you also visited Takehara,
Mm.
not far, well, in Hiroshima, Fukuyama area. It looks beautiful right now. Like Kyoto, it's a great time to visit when there's a lot less people.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
basically.
streets and everything look amazing.
Yeah, it was. I had no idea. I didn't even know the name of the town, and we went to visit one specific property, Nipponia, that's recently taken over some of those old houses and done a beautiful job. But we had some extra time, so we were just walking the streets, and yeah, so much old traditional architecture, really beautifully kept up. So that's what we love to find, where people have their preconceived ideas of Japan, but they think they can only see it in Kyoto, or, and to find it somewhere way off with, this year it's, they're not big crowds anyway, but from talking to the staff there, they said even in, pre pandemic, it was not ever mobbed. So to tell people you can have that experience and breathe, something that will attract a lot of people, I think. Mm. Yeah, we went there. We went there. That was a bit surreal. Like I had heard of Rabbit Island, but only Rabbit Island. I didn't know the history, and so one of our guides is also based in Onomichi. He's an American, and so the first night when we got to Onomichi, he said, "Are you going to Rabbit Island?" And we're like, "Nah, rabbits." And he's like, "No, but there's this amazing history there where they used to manufacture poison gas, and then it just all just came to a stop at the end of the war, and somehow rabbits arrived and proliferated. So now you have this contrast of all these little cute bunnies hopping all over the place against this background of, these empty, abandoned factories and laboratories, and it's a little surreal and very Japanese, I think, to turn
It
something
is.
like that into a tourist destination.
We had a great talk with a documentary filmmaker in the series, talking about documenting some of the stories from children at the time who were working in the poison gas factory. So that was really interesting. You were also
Yeah,
in Setoda, which is a
yeah,
beautiful area along the Shimanami Kaido cycling route. A great
right,
port
yeah,
town not far from Onomichi.
right, right. So we did cycle there. It's about 30 kilometers from Onomichi. So we rented bikes in the city and cycled out there one afternoon, and it was a beautiful ride. Really, they've done an amazing job with that route. I mean, you're completely safe and away from cars for much of it, and each island has its own character. So we found that interesting too. One of the islands is it Hiroshima, the one in the middle, the one just before. It's very industrial, either factories, and then you get some agricultural farmland. But even that's really interesting. It may not be, pristine, scenic, natural beauty, but it's kind of cool as an outsider to come in and see like what's going on in the real world in all these places. And then you cross over to the next island, and suddenly it's farmlands and little houses and little towns, and we only got as far as Setoda. We'd like to come back and go all the way to Imabari. But the guide told us the further you go, the more natural and more scenic and more beautiful the ride gets. So.
I've been many times and discover new things every time. It's always worth going back and exploring a new part of it. You also
Mm.
stayed in this amazing new hotel, which is a restoration of an old, very old house. How was that? It looks amazing.
Yeah, the Azumi Setoda. Yeah, it was amazing. It's apparently the newest project from Adrian Zecca. He's the original mind behind the Aman properties, and so it's very contemporary. The restaurant and the lobby are in the old restored house, so it has an old Minka feel, and then the 22 rooms are in a new build, but very traditional, very minimalist. It definitely has that Aman vibe. Um, the food was out of this world. I mean, seriously, one of the best meals we've had in Japan, which is saying a lot because we get to eat a lot of amazing food. The chef was trained in Kyoto, but he draws from a Southeast Asian palate. So just the flavors, and then everything is local. The fish, the vegetables, everything is local. So that combination was just dish after dish. It was amazing. and very reasonably priced, actually, which was a relief because we ate a lot. But yeah, I would highly recommend that for people looking for something
And
a little less.
yeah, it looks amazing, and it falls into your love of restoring Minka, which we'll talk about your experience in a little
Yeah.
while. You were also in Onomichi.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to visit. We were there not long ago. I think we're going again tomorrow. But again, there's lots of new things to discover every time.
Yeah, I really liked the feel of that town. It had this really laid back vibe. The people were really friendly and relaxed. A lot of younger people, Japanese people seem to be moving there. I guess they have some projects where you can basically take an empty house either for little or no money, and if you renovate it, you get to keep it. Just trying to draw people away from the cities. So we met this wonderful young tea master, Genki Tea Shop Gen, it's called. And he has his own tea fields. He does everything himself. He's basically kind of a one-man show, and charming little tea shop where we did a tasting of like 7 different kinds of natural teas that he brews. And the bike guy, like I said, he's another young, energetic guy, just, really fun. The guide I was mentioning, Peter, has a vintage clothing shop there called Tastemaker, right on a corner in an old building, like a lot of old like American clothes from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So it's sort of nostalgic to walk into his shop. And yeah, just a really good and great food. Uh, really good food. So definitely worth a visit. And we stayed at a beautiful property there too. I guess there's 2 properties under the same management. There's the Hotel Log, which is a renovated, well, here we call them mansion, but an old apartment building. They renovated it from what did they tell us? Like a 40 apartment building into a 6 guest room hotel. Very minimal. I mean, beyond minimalist. The 6 rooms are just shoji. Essentially, you're in a white shoji box. So not for everybody, perhaps, but cool. And for people into architecture, the whole project would be interesting. And then next door, they renovated 2 old traditional houses in Minka style. And you rent the whole house. So it's sort of a one-party rental. And they did a beautiful job with those 2. So if you wanted the experience of living in a real traditional Japanese house for a couple nights, that would be a great option. It has a full kitchen, everything. So what's interesting about Onomichi, we found, is that over half the city is on that hill that has no road access. So you walk. It's 100 steps up to the hotels and the people who live there. There's some access where it's smooth, so you can push a bike or push a cart, but a lot of it is just step access. And oh my gosh, we're watching these, 70, 80, 90-year-old obachans, getting home, going up their stairs. No wonder you live forever.
I think that might be part of the reason why a lot of the housing areas have kind of been abandoned, because there is no road access. It's a little bit more difficult, especially for older people, perhaps, who can't drive right up to their house or have stuff delivered right to them. But so many beautiful old homes, and that falls right into your love of restoring Minka. Now, your experience with travel and setting people up in these kinds of homes, have you had a lot of interest from overseas and people wanting to stay in homes like these?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely up until now, it's been something people want to do at least for 1 or 2 nights of their stay. And I think post-COVID, when travel resumes, that's going to be the direction travel's going to go in. People are going to want to be in their own private, villa. The big hotels won't be so appealing for a while. So it's going to be a great time. And Julie and I have been so excited to finally have people ask, not just us talking them into visiting these areas, but people saying, so where can I take my family where there's not going to be a lot of people? So literally from Hokkaido down to Okinawa, there are villas and there are houses and there are places to rent. And it's really, I think, going to be a great time for them once Japan reopens. But there have been people doing it all along. There's 2 beautiful villas in rural Nara that we've sent people for years, called Sasayurian. One's a 300-year-old traditional Minka that the owner completely renovated, and then he became popular and busy, so he built new build, but following completely traditional architectural standards. He built a second one. Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So perfect for luxury clients because he and his family are basically the concierge. But you have your own private gorgeous villa. It's 45 minutes from Nara, a little over an hour from Kyoto. So that we've been sending people there for years, and everyone says it's the highlight, of their trip.
I think so too. And I talked to Axel Deberu, who's doing like Peko Peko Box
Yeah,
and
yeah,
slow
yeah.
travel. And
Mm-hmm.
I think they're doing similar things, like finding restored Minka in the rural areas and setting their clients up there for longer stays. Of course, now during coronavirus, everybody in tourism has kind of been on pause.
Right.
But hopefully, this is a good time. Like you're using the time to restore an old Minka. Maybe guests can stay at your place in the future. Is that what you're thinking?
Friends and family. Yeah. And if we had clients who were doing like a day tour or an overnight tour of the Noto Peninsula, yeah, sure. On the way up, stop and have some tea and, meet an American who's renovated a Minka. But no, it's actually, although it looks huge, it's not, the footprint that you live in is actually not so huge. So there's no second floor. It's just a big roof with some storage up there. So we have essentially what could be a guest room. It's the washitsu where we could put out futons, but it's right next to the living room and right next to our bedroom. And then we do have a little tiny hanare guest wing that has two little 6-mat rooms in it. But for the last 3 years, a young glass artist has been renting a room in our Kanazawa house, and she's actually interested in following us out here, mainly because she's grown very attached to our cats. So I think we might end up renovating those for a private wing for her, just to continue doing her glass work. And so if we didn't do that, if she didn't move out here, we might turn that into a more official guest wing. But my husband is not. He's lovely. He's from Glasgow, but the idea of tending to strangers is not so appealing to him. So serving them tea, no problem. Walking through the gardens, no problem. Having them complain about the pillow not being soft enough, no, not going to happen.
No,
So
I get it. You want it for yourself. You want your own space. And so I've been following your Instagram and all your updates. This is a beautiful house.
yeah,
Tell me about it. How old is it? And
yeah, it's I think 1905, so about 115 years old. But when we bought it, the timbers, the main beams, which are massive, are about 300 years old. So the agent told us that, Japanese style, they rebuild every so often and they recycle what materials they can recycle. The Naya, the barn, dates to 1868 as an original property. So that's the oldest existing property building on the property. So as far as we understand from the neighbors, this couple in their late 80s, the family that was here for many generations, until they just ran out of people that wanted to live in a big old sprawling farmhouse. And the two remaining people that are alive are in their 60s and built a modern house up the road. So they just were ready to be done with it. So
well,
we
I'm so excited to talk to you about the renovations. And you've been doing so much of the work yourself, haven't you? It looks like you're doing a lot of it hands-on.
Yeah, all of it. My husband's a master carpenter and joiner, and also can do electric and plumbing, and he does everything. So it's been a few years. We didn't, if it hadn't been for the pandemic, we would probably still be slowly plugging along on weekends and, when I had some free time. But this year has been a gift in that respect. So for everything we've lost in the travel business, I think I've gained in having the opportunity to work on the house. And so we've probably done more in the last 12 months than we've done in the preceding 4 years. Um, But it's really coming together finally, which is exciting. And finally, things that you can see, because so much of the early work is replacing the floors and redoing the walls, and you don't see it. People would be asking for updates. I'm like, you can't really see what we did. It's taken weeks, but you can't see any of it. So now finally it's like, I made this shoji, or I built this cabinet, or it's nice to have some visual.
I'm showing pictures from your attic, and we found this too in buying an old house. How impressed we were, and I've talked to Asby Brown, who's an expert in carpentry and Japanese traditional techniques, about how everything is fitted together without nails. And you discovered this in your attic too. It's really impressive.
Yeah, I did a post a while ago of like 6 joints around the house that are just traditional Japanese joints. And yeah, there's not a nail in the original structure of the house. They had a big renovation in the late 60s, early 70s when they added a modern kitchen. What had been an open engawa, they turned into a hallway, and that's actually when the hanare was built. So I think at that point there must have been in-laws moved in, the son and the wife must have moved in, they needed more space. So that section it looks traditional, but it's a more modern build below the surface. But yeah, the main house is pretty solid. and it was so dry. And that's the other thing. It stood here all this time, and yet not a leak, no moisture, dry as a bone underneath. And traditional Japanese style, it's just posts sitting on rocks, sitting on dirt. You look underneath there and you think, my whole house is sitting on these rocks. But it withstands everything. And we have earthquakes here. There was a big one about 10 years ago, but it seems okay. Knock on wood. Seems okay.
You did in the attic was to add insulation. Have you noticed a big difference once you put the insulation down?
Huge difference, both in winter and summer. So in the winter, it certainly keeps all the heat from going out, and in the summer, it keeps all the heat from the big black tile roof from coming down. And we have big ceiling fans, both in the living room and in the kitchen. So that really makes a difference as well. We're mainly heating with wood. We did put in a kerosene heater, permanent one, more to just sort of keep it at about 12 degrees, I guess around 50 Fahrenheit overnight, or if we go out of town, so the cats don't freeze to death. But basically, we plan to heat with wood, and there's so much wood in this area. It's kind of a never-ending resource, and I love the smell of wood stove. When we lived in Alaska for 14 years, and it was only wood heat up there. It keeps everything dry too, which is nice.
I've seen a lot of beautiful, is it steel or iron wood stoves that are in the house, and they kind of heat up a big area because they're quite efficient. And if you're using local wood, it seems like a more sustainable choice too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we also learned from a friend who's lived here a long time, kind of a Japanese outdoorsman. He makes his own logs out of bamboo, because he lives in a sort of bamboo forest area as well. So he'll take the bigger ones and then he'll split smaller ones into pieces, stuff them into the sections of the bigger one, and it burns like a log. So even if we ever were to run out of wood, which seems unlikely, we also have a big bamboo forest behind us. So I think we'll always have something to burn, plus the massive pile of scrap wood from this project.
I've heard that from a few people in the series talking about remodeling old houses, that you usually have quite a lot of scrap wood once you do some remodeling, and that'll keep you in wood burning for a while. Now, you did a really interesting comparison talking about renovating versus restoring. So you did a lot of doors work, the sliding fusuma, and you added insulation to some, did you?
I did. And thank you for making that distinction too, because we have other friends who have bought old Minkas and have literally restored them so they look like they looked, 100 years ago. We wanted to keep the Minka looking like a Minka, but we wanted to be it's our home. We're going to be living in it, so we want some modern conveniences. We wanted to update some things. We both are fans of sort of mixed media, where you have wood and metal and stone and glass all kind of working together. So we definitely did a lot of that. The kitchen, somewhere in there's a picture of the kitchen. The tsuchikabe, the clay walls, traditional clay walls, were in really bad shape. And my husband had tried to stucco over them, but they were just crumbling. And we thought originally, well, we could, remix the mud and then put on the special glue stuff. We could redo it all, but it was also a little bit of a dark room. Sorry, my phone's being so noisy. Then he got the idea of putting up tin. So we got the corrugated tin that you would normally use for a house or a roof and put it in the upper area of the kitchen. And it did two things. It allowed in a ton of light. So now the kitchen feels really light. The light reflects from outside. It reflects from the overhead lights. And it also gives it a kind of retro modern look, which is kind of interesting because we still have all the heavy beams, and we opened up the ceiling so you see the big roof beams, but then you have this contemporary, covering on the walls. The floors are traditional, the original floors that we pulled up, put down insulation, and then put back down again. So it's the original wide plank wooden floors. So it's very mixed, the kitchen. The fusuma you're mentioning, because the washitsu, the Japanese room that we're leaving as a Japanese room, butts right against what will be our bedroom. So both for insulation heating wise, but also for sound, I wanted something thicker than a traditional door. So I went and, my husband, I went and got like 1/2-inch felt in a big roll, a huge roll of this stuff, and cut out each little square to fit into the skeleton of the fusuma. And then I had actually planned to paper it, but I got that far and Patrick came in and he's like, "Oh, that looks really cool. You should leave it like that." It's like, "Really?" And I sort of stepped back from it. I thought it does look kind of cool, but I can't just leave it open. So we went and got full sheets of plexiglass and little tiny nails, nailed the plexiglass over the whole thing. So you can actually, it works. You can stand in one room or the other and talk in a low voice and you don't hear. Whereas with just paper, it's so that'll be nice. If we have guests, they might feel like they have a little more privacy.
No, it's gorgeous. You've done a great job, and I love all the traditional washi you're using to repaper some of the doors. It's just stunning.
It's all from Tokushima, actually. On another one of these off the beaten track research trips, Julia and I drove from Kagawa. We're on our way to Tokushima City, and we went through the Iya Valley. And the Awagami factory is the washi place. And they have an English website, and they ship all over the world. And in one of those weird small world coincidences, we have a couple who's planning to travel to Japan in October. And we were speaking to them by Skype last November, I guess it was. And she's an artist, and she mentioned that some of the paper I work with comes from this little rural place in Japan. And she told us the name of it. We hadn't heard of it at that point. And about a week later, we got the Tokushima City invited us to come in and do a 2-day inspection tour. So as soon as we mapped it out, we realized we were literally going to drive right past this factory. So we went in, and mainly to see it for these clients, until we got into the shop, where we spent an hour and a half. If Julia were here, she would say, "We spent an hour and a half." I got a little overwhelmed, and there's just so much to choose from. So yeah, I ended up buying like 7 different kinds of washi. I didn't have any plan for them at the time. I just knew they were gorgeous, and I'd find a way to use them.
Well, you've done a beautiful job. We have a great comment here from Wendy on Facebook. Thanks for joining, Wendy. She says, "What a great take on a kitchen. So clever. Honoring the original and making it modern and livable." Yeah, the kitchen restoration's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, we found a new retro refrigerator as well. So it's small. We try to eat as naturally as possible. So we're trying to the house we're in now came with a pretty large refrigerator, and it's filled with junk, as most people's refrigerator. The more space you have, the more crap you put in there. So we thought if we force ourselves to limit what's actually going in our fridge, maybe we will get away from that. Um, yeah, so that's kind of the.
You've really like opened up a lot of natural light by having kind of new windows above, or how did you do that? Is that a
Yeah,
skylight?
Patrick put in two things. He put in the one window you can see, and then he made a new roof out of more of the corrugated, but the heavy plastic corrugated that people use like on their garden sheds. Two layers of that, but for insulation. He's very big on insulation. About 6 inches of thick bubble wrap. So he basically made a sandwich, which also helps with the rain, the sound of the rain, but it lets in so much light. I don't think I included a before picture of the kitchen, but it was not the kitchen. It was where the grandmother had been living. It was the one room she basically lived in. It had an artificial drop ceiling that was, I don't know, maybe a little over 6 feet high. So everything was hidden. The kitchen windows were there, of course, but that was it. So other than those windows, which face west but face the forest, so don't get a lot of direct light, it was a dark room. So once we decided to make it the kitchen, we thought, how can we get as much light as possible in here? So that
When
worked.
I talked to Asby Brown most recently, it was on International Women's Day, and we were talking about the evolution of Japanese dream house design. And one of the things that always really irritated me about visiting traditional houses was how dark and remote the kitchen was. It was often
Yeah.
in the back of the house or in a very dark room. So adding more natural light, making it a more central part of like a social space, I think
Yeah.
is something I'm so glad to see in the
Yeah.
evolution of design with more modern houses, and you've done a great job.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we both love to cook, so it's somewhere we want people to be able to hang out. If we did have company over, if it's just the two of us, we don't cook that well together, but we can keep each other company while the whichever one of us is doing the cooking. So it's nice to have the big counter. And we ended up getting the big counters from Costco. I don't think I included pictures of those either, but when we first bought them, they were like dark fake wood veneer, um, dark and heavy, and I didn't like that either. So that was an early project, was to sand off, blast everything down to the light wood, painted all the drawers red, and then just sealed the natural wood on top of the countertop. So that also lightened it up quite a bit. Um, Made it.
Bit about the fusuma. Wendy has a question. What's a story on the fusuma you're showing? Blue on top, green on the bottom. So there is a great story, and you found some interesting paper underneath the fusuma as well. Tell us about that.
Um, yeah. So okay. Sorry. So there's so many fusuma. Um, so if it's the green and the multicolored fusuma, okay, and yellow and red, or just the one that looks like mountains? Okay, yeah, that's okay. So those are the ones that go from the living room into the bedroom, and they were built differently than the middle doors that have the grid. They were solid. They had plywood on either side. Um, so the ones that are blue and green are also the same washi, but I tore it into strips, put it into shoji paper glue and warm water, and then put it on and scrunched it up and got that feeling and sort of created this, I don't know, mountain sky scene. So that was that set. On the other side of those is just like a plain beige washi, which is inside the bedroom. Um, the ones that go on the other side of the washitsu leading into the engawa, the kind of corridor sunroom, that's where the ones with the writing came from. So I peeled off the old, dirty, off-white, whatever they had, planning to do some more cool washi stuff, and found what our friend said was calligraphy practice books and some letters and notes, and that's what they had used underneath. And it's just too cool to cover up, so I just left that one. And then on the reverse of that is the blue, green, red, yellow, white washi, which is what you see as you drive down our driveway, 'cause it's glass doors along the front. So you see all these bright colors as you're coming towards the house. So it's kind of a cheerful first sighting of the house.
And that's all from the washi paper shop in Tokushima, is it?
Yep, yep, Awagami. It's all from Awagami.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm so glad we stopped in there. Yeah, the only washi that is local to Kanazawa is this that I'm placing here in the living room right now, and I think it shows up in a picture or two, where it looks like a perimeter of washi and then four clear squares in the middle. That washi I got at a shop in Kanazawa. And again, I one thing about Japanese houses is you don't get a view from anywhere, even if you're surrounded. We have glass doors really on all four sides, but left to traditional devices, we wouldn't be able to see out any of them. They're either smoky or they're cloudy or there's textured glass or it's shoji. And we live in a beautiful place. I want to be able to see it all year round. So I was thinking, how can I maintain the insulation value that you get from shoji, but also have a window? And came up with the idea of doing the washi as a perimeter, and then again the thick but flexible plastic, like rubberized plastic, covering the whole back. So it acts like a window. And one thing I didn't anticipate until it was up was that it looks like the Taisho glass. The very early turn of the century glass they made in Japan that's all wavy, and I love that when I see it. That's kind of how this plastic came out looking. So that was kind of a nice bonus. It lets a ton of light in. I mean, any light you see on my face right now is coming through that. So it's the only light right now.
Beautiful. We have a comment from Fraz, who joined from YouTube. Thanks for joining, Fraz. Says, I like the colors. It's so nice to have color around, even though it's a traditional house. I just find the bright colors really cheer you up, don't you think?
Yeah, because it's basically, now that we've stained everything, it's dark brown and white is the palette of this house naturally. So we got the sofa, which is really colorful, and then just touches of color everywhere else we can put it. I don't, like, as much as I appreciate the aesthetic of, say, an Amman property, it's not something I want to live in 24/7. I like color, and Patrick is crazy about color. I mean, it was one of his rules, because the design was pretty much up to me. He's like, just don't make it boring. No beige, please, no beige. Okay.
You've kept the original wood floors, but you've buffed it up. Have you added like a stain or something? It looks really dark black, very shiny, almost maybe dark brown, you said?
Yeah, it's actually a new floor. This room was all tatami, and underneath it was a thin subfloor, but it wasn't in great condition. So somewhere in all those pictures, you can see where we actually stripped it down to the original beams and joists. We found an organic termite spray that we treated everything with. And then Patrick just started building back up again with a layer of, the black felt, the heavy black paper, and then a layer of plywood, and then the strips. Then we put in 4-inch insulation, then another layer of plywood, and then we laid the floor. And this floor was milled just about a mile up the road. So it's locally harvested kind of cypress wood, and milled just up the road. And we would have liked wider planks, but it's hard to get the wide planks. So we settled on I think 4-inch, 6-inch, 4-inch, 6-inch all the way through, and then covered it with paper for about 3 years and worked on it. So it got the hell beaten out of it actually for 4 years, 3.5 years. And we finally took off the paper, and I had some extra pieces of it. So for about 2 weeks, I was just doing staining tests. So mixing different, try this. And finally got what I wanted. And then sealers. So same thing, sealing. Finally got what I wanted. And it was about a 2-week project, because there were 2 layers of stain and then 2 layers of sealer with a couple days to dry in between each one. But yeah, the result is that it looks like an old floor. So that's
gorgeous. And it looks
Thank
like
you.
in one of the original, you said replacing main floor. Originally, did it have a irori, like a inside cooking area in the middle?
It it did sort of almost where I'm sitting actually right now, kind of the left side of the living room. But it was the old one, so it was crumbled. I mean, it was beyond saving. So we toyed with building a new one, but again, it came back to wanting the house to be functional, and it just wasn't in a convenient place for how we envision using the living room. So when Patrick put in the floor in the Engao in the little brightly sunroom there, he did leave. There was a smaller one, like the kind you'd see for tea ceremony size. He left, and it was in good shape. So he left that one. So we have floor that covers it, but we can pull that up, and it has we have the sand in it, and we can put the pot in it, and so someone could come and do tea ceremony, or we could put a little hibachi there. So that's the only one we kept. Every room had one originally, but mostly they were in just 80-year-old, 100-year-old condition, and I love them. And if we were running an inn, I probably would have kept one because it would have been such a draw. But for real life, they're not super practical. So
And it often fills the room with smoke, which is not very comfortable to be in, right?
actually, it was about a 3-day project cleaning the beams from 100 years of creosote. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. One really interesting feature, which was also in our house, but I'm really sad that we didn't keep it, is very steep stairs, which underneath is like a storage space.
Yeah,
And we
that
ended up getting rid of ours, and because it was the only stairs, and we had to replace the staircase. But
uh,
you've kept like the storage bit, and it's gorgeous. Oh, did you get rid
yes,
of it?
no, but Patrick just built it like 2 months
Oh,
ago.
wow. Okay.
It's it's all him. Before it was just a trap door, and they must have brought a ladder over. And for the last 3 years, we've had a little step ladder to get up there. But we went around and around with what to do, and because it's only really sort of a half floor, it's our mezzanine floor. You can stand up. You can stand up if you're up to 6 feet tall. You can stand up in it, but there's a huge beam running through it that hits me at about my shoulder. It'll probably be storage and maybe an auxiliary guest room. It'll be really warm because the wood stove chimney goes through it. But we wanted more storage too, and so we started kind of looking for secondhand of the step cabinets, the kaidan tansu, and we could only find two ultimately. One was in horrible condition, and the other one they wanted $3,000 for. So no. So then Patrick said, I'll just build it. So he built it, and then I stained it so it looked like it had been there forever. And,
That's wonderful. And it really is something that looks like it fits with the house. This
mm,
is something I saw in the Fridales video about
yeah,
their restoration. They had this
right.
beautiful staircase, storage
Mm-mm.
space. And I'm so sad that we didn't keep ours, at least move it to another part because it was such a beautiful feature,
They
original
are.
wood. So you've done a great job.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he asked me. It's mainly going to be for my office, the storage for my office. My office space is just really a desk with a computer on it. So I needed some storage, and that's reasonably close to where I'll be sitting. So most of those cabinets will be my printer, my paper, all the travel brochures I collect, and probably the tall closet will be for brooms and sweepers and things like that. So
What works for your lifestyle, and it looks great. I mean, it's just a perfect solution. Frass says, was it easy to find insulation for the floors here? Loving the
yeah.
openness of the living room. Is it an open concept with kitchen, living, dining?
So easy to find insulation, not super thick insulation. The 4-inch, 10 centimeter was as thick as we could find, but that worked for us. That's the fiberglass insulation. They also have the styrofoam, which we used in some places where we didn't have enough room. The blue board. It's open, fairly open living room, sort of fireplace area, back door area, and the stair thing you were talking about, and then it bleeds right into the kitchen, and there's also a door to the kitchen through the living room. So it's fairly open. You can see all the rooms from all the rooms, but it's not completely one big space. And the bookshelves too, I think you can see in some photos. Sorry, I know they can't. I don't know if you can see behind me. There's bookshelves behind me. They're also built in. Originally, those were all fusuma as well. It's actually 3 small rooms behind me, and then the main living room area. And they all had fusuma on all sides. We have so many doors in our storage right now. So we took all of that out and then built in a full bookshelf. That's what's on the other side of the staircase thing. And then on this side is a half-level bookcase. But again, he used thick, thick wood, and then I stained it. So the idea was that it looked like it had been part of the original house.
Gorgeous. And I love a lot of the antique features you've either collected from other places and added. You have these like burgundy, red, and glass design doors, which you ended up using in front of a closet, it looks like.
Yeah, and they match the house so perfectly. We can't remember where we found those doors. It was that long ago, but they were sort of 4 narrower than a traditional Japanese doorway size door, just stacked up in the back. They were gorgeous. We knew we'd find a place for them. And then we didn't think we could use them here for this closet because it's not set up to have sliding, and we wanted a closet that opened properly. And at first Patrick was hesitant to use them because he would have to cut them a little bit and change the shape and the size a little bit. And finally we're like, it's our house. These are our doors that we found somewhere. They're gorgeous. If it means putting hinges on them so that they can be part of the house, that's not the end of the world. So yeah, now they're right here in the living room looking again like they've been here forever. We really wish we could remember where we got them. But
I love that so much. Frass says, wow, looks amazing. We have been trying to find houses like this. It has not been easy. Now, Lauren, recently you've been saying you have a few friends who've also gotten Minkas and been remodeling. So you have a few friends who are having luck finding a place as well, is it?
Yeah. This one we found, excuse me, about actually on my 50th birthday. So a little less than 5 years ago, a friend in Toyama sent me a link. We were not looking for a farmhouse. We thought we wanted to find some, once we decided we were going to stay in Japan long term, we wanted to find some land. And Patrick wanted to finally build, his conceptual, eco-friendly, self-sustained house that he's been designing in his mind for 20 years. So not looking for a Minka. Love them, not looking for one. So my friend Sherry sends this link and she said, I know you're not looking for it, but isn't this gorgeous? It's only $30,000 and isn't it gorgeous? And the house she sent me was gorgeous. So we figured out where it was and just went to look at it. It was further up the Noto. It was beautiful. It had sustained damage in the big earthquake I mentioned earlier. It would have needed a lot of work. It was about twice the size of this place. Had no indoor running water, but it had mountain water. 14 years in Alaska, we had no running water, so that was not a thing for us. The real estate agent was like holding her breath when she said it. And when we got excited, she was really confused. That's usually when people walk away. So we moved ahead on it. And then at the last minute, it all fell apart through something on their end. Just didn't happen. But by then we were kind of like Minka addicted. So the real estate agent felt so guilty that it had fallen apart that she said, I will find you another one. It took her about 3 or 4 months and she found this place, which is so much better in every way. So, things happen, I think, the way they're supposed to. It's worked out a lot better. But it was through the Akiya Bank, which is the empty house bank, I guess, which is all throughout Japan, and it has a website. So several other friends we know who are converting found their Minka through the Akiya Bank. So it's a good place to start.
We didn't find one quite as reasonably priced as yours, but it's not far out of Hiroshima City. It's even with the remodel, even with putting solar panels on, it is a lot cheaper than a new build would have been. Plus, we have the space that a new build is not allowed to have. They have to build it different. So there's so many advantages to buying an older place and remodeling if you have patience and if you have some skills like you guys. That definitely helps.
Yeah, we're the friends we know who are doing it are split between friends who have hired in crews to do it and friends who are able to do it themselves. And it makes a big difference financially if you can do it yourself, certainly. And yeah, we're lucky. This area, the houses are very reasonably priced. Here we're about 50 minutes from Kanazawa City, so it's not far from civilization. We're sort of right between the city of Hakui and the township of Shibagaki. So, it's 6 kilometers one way and 11 kilometers the other way to get to shopping and supermarkets. And of course, now with the internet, there's very little you can't find that can't come right to you. Even our hot water heater, our stove, some of the big things we had to buy, we were able to find online, and Patrick installed them. So the world's changed a lot since we lived here in the mid 90s, and I don't think I would have done it back then, but it's easy to do now. So.
I would love to hear about this old office cabinet that you renovated. I love this restoration, or not restoration because you've made it better than it was. You buffed down an old cabinet and added paint and tiles. Tell me about that. I love it.
We just needed something to go in the corner of the kitchen that will be where the hot water heater, the hot water, in Japan we all have those hot water dispensers, and then the cats have their drinking fountain, and a cabinet to keep all of our tea and coffee. And I just couldn't find anything. We're looking for everything salvage or secondhand or thrift stores or antique stores, and Patrick can build anything, and that's always his first. Like when I say I want something, he's like, "I'll build it," but that list is so long, and I just wanted something. So, at a used office supply store, I found this old ugly metal cabinet, and yeah, used the sander to buff it down, painted it like 7 times, and we had a retired tile contractor in town told us to come and just clean out his storage unit. So we have all this tile sitting around, and didn't want to bother Patrick to help me cutting things. So I just used pieces that would fit like a jigsaw that didn't need any cutting. Yeah, and it came together. So that was fun.
I love
Another
it.
break.
And it adds a nice color, and it's exactly the size you wanted. And you're reusing the old, thing that nobody wanted. It's just fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, I think it was 3,000 yen, or something like $30 or something for it. So,
have there been other projects around the house that you've been really happy with that you've done?
Yeah, I mean, mainly I've been the shoji fusuma queen. So, this house literally has no walls. We have like a 3 by 6 section of wall next to the bed, and but it's 90% sliding doors of some kind or another, which is going to make it a challenge for hanging art and so forth. Almost all of our art will be above the perimeter in all the rooms. So the doors were probably 2 months of work getting through everybody. And then the staining was a big thing. The kitchen cabinets were a big thing. And then I had a plaster, which is also something, of course, the Wonder Husband can do. So he showed me the basics of it. And yeah, so green in the bedroom, blue in the Japanese room, and sort of a Tuscan gold in the Engawa. Did all of those. That was fun. You feel that. Boy, you feel that the next day. But that was fun.
Yeah. Did you find a nice place to get color for the plastering? Because I did our walls as well. Orange. I found a nice company that had colored like natural colors, but a bit brighter. It looks like you found as well.
The same company. They come in little plastic things online, and the green came that way. We found one product that comes in a range of sort of mostly subtle, boring colors, but the green was okay. And then to the others, we just used their cream and I added the blue. And I wanted the Kanazawa blue originally, which is this really intense aquamarine blue. But after spending $200 in aquamarine and still ending up with that color, we decided we liked that color and it was going to stay that color.
And it
which is
does
fine.
fade. It does fade over time. I did buy some in plastic, but it was really bugging me to have all that single use plastic. So I did
Mm.
find one company that would ship it already mixed
Oh, no.
in a box. So there was just one plastic bag that it came in.
Oh, great.
So I think if you search around or mix your own, if you're handy, you can save on all the plastic packaging. You've also
Right.
been restoring these beautiful wooden trunks.
Oh, yeah, the Nagamochi, the traditional storage trunks. Yeah, the house came with four of them in different sizes and shapes. So one I did recently is sort of a medium-sized one, probably 4 feet by 2.5 feet, and yeah, just excuse me, just cleaned it up and then linseed oil, covered it all in linseed oil. So that'll be, it sits right in the bedroom, so it'll be probably where we keep the bedding. And Japanese houses tend to be short on closets. So yeah, those trunks will come in handy.
Oh,
Excuse me.
bless you. And it looks like the picture I'm showing, it has a beautiful circular window behind it. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I love that.
Gorgeous.
Patrick built that too. So that space was actually where the Butsudan was originally. What's now our bedroom used to be their part of their traditional Japanese room. So there was a huge Butsudan that they took. So it was just an alcove. And I've always loved round windows. And I was on one of my trips a couple of years ago. I was gone for about 10 days. So while I was gone, he put in that window. The glass is actually from a coffee table that he found at a secondhand store. And he just framed it in and plastered it in. And then we found at another antique store perfect shoji windows that cover it, fit it perfectly. So that was nice. That was just sort of everything came together.
Ah, it's so beautiful. Maybe another service that you can offer is helping people find pieces for their Minka restorations. You guys are so good at it. You found so
Yeah,
many and built so many beautiful pieces. Amazing.
yeah, we're both kind of something we've had in common since we met is secondhand store scavenging. It's definitely Patrick's favorite hobby. Like if he gets a day off, he'll just take off in the truck and do the rounds. Whenever we go anywhere, we're just down visiting friends in Takamatsu, and um, we told her that we would probably like to do that. So her father's retired, so she kind of gave him the task of tracking down all the cool shops, and we found some great stuff down there. I mean, we found what my desk will be is an old Japanese sewing machine, the old traditional iron treadle table. So the we'll just put wood on top, and that will be the basis for my desk. So it fits quite well with the feel of the house. The seat's an old single seat piano bench. So it's sort of this old heavy duty wood with this old velvet seat, and then it lifts up and it has storage inside. Those both came from Takamatsu. One of the sheep that I mentioned earlier came from Takamatsu. So yeah, we've just been over the years collecting things.
Yeah.
The beauty of having storage. Not always knowing where they were going to end up, but liking them and figuring we'll incorporate them.
Yeah. It looks like you're
Pat-
putting down wood tiling on the floor of the bathroom as well.
That was oh, the bathroom, right? Those are teak 12 by 12s. Um, we originally were going to tile, but there's no way to retro subheat the floor. So I was like, bathroom floor is going to be freezing. So then we saw those at a home center. They're meant for an outdoor deck or like to put on your patio or something, but they fit together really nicely. In this way, you're standing on wood when you're taking your shower. So the only thing we kept in the bathroom was the original tub, which was this crazy blue resin kind of. It's fun. So we decided to keep it and then just modernize the bath around it with
Yeah,
tile and
it doesn't look bad. It doesn't look like a bad tub. Typically in Japanese houses, it's the deep but very I don't want to not narrow, not shallow, short,
kind of
short
short.
bath, but deep, right?
So, it's
But it doesn't look too bad. It's such a cool like 70s 80s teal color.
absolutely. Absolutely. So we decided just to keep that. And we've lived with a similar bathroom in our rental house in Kanazawa for all these years. So we're very used to it. And it's nice because the water does come up to your chin. It's deep enough that you can't stretch out, but you are fully immersed, which is also really nice too. Um,
Yeah.
and down the road, we'll probably build a sauna at some point. And Patrick wants to build an outdoor brick oven.
Oh,
So
nice. Yeah. We've
down.
visited a great like restored old farmhouse outside Hiroshima, and they did an outdoor pizza oven, and they've
Yeah.
done some really nice like antique work inside as well. I think
Uh,
if you have an eye for it and you have patience to do some of the work yourself, you can really
right.
create such a beautiful space that you want to live in, or
Mm.
if you want to rent it out, it's a great business venture as well.
Yeah, well, the local town wants us to do that, and in fact, part of the licensing paperwork process to get this place, because the land had was originally agriculture, and they had us mark out parking for 8 cars. But then last year, somebody told us that actually, if you actually do grow anything, you're okay. You don't need to even be selling it. You just need to be using it for agriculture. And I'd always wanted to start a garden. So that's when I started last year again with the pandemic. I had time. So I just kind of dove full into putting in a big sprawling organic garden. So now the city's happy, like, oh, you're growing food, great, and I got totally addicted to gardening, and I've never grown anything, but it's been so much fun, and we have the land for it. So I'm excited. It's garden season again, so I can get out
Yay.
and start.
Yeah. You've inspired me. I need to get out there. We have some great local farmers that we source from, like Thomas, who you visited in Onomichi area. But it's wonderful to just grow some of your own and just pick some tomatoes from your garden, have some basil from the garden for dinner. It's just magical, right?
Yeah, we actually ate from the garden for probably 5 months last year, and actually we're eating the last squash tonight. Like I was able to the squash lasted for a good 6 months, the butternut squash and whatnot. And they were just starting to get to the point where we had about 10 left that I just chopped up and froze, and I've been using them in soups. And the last one is going in a soup tonight. So I'm thinking, wow, that's like 9 months that this garden fed us,
That's
carrots and beets
great.
and onions.
Wow. Well done. Well,
So
thank you so much for joining. That is our hour. And
yeah,
I am sure that your passion for renovating old houses is definitely something that informs you in how you can set people up for great stays in
mm,
Japan and around rural areas as well, because you have that inside knowledge and all those great stories about how you remodeled things yourselves. So that's such a great way to then set up great stays for people
right.
visiting from the outside who want to stay in places like that. And I hope
Yeah,
we see more and more of these. These are really exciting.
I think we will. It seems to be the direction. So
Yeah. Well,
thank
thank
you so much.
you. Yeah, that was great having you. Your travel insights, but also your Minka restoration insights. Good luck with the project still.
You. Thank you. We're looking forward to living here.
Yeah. So anyone who wants to keep up with your travel insights and your restoration projects, have a look at Nippon Discovery on Instagram. Is that the
Yeah.
best way for them to keep up with it?
Yeah, right. Traditionally, it's all Japan travel, but this year, of course, there's been not that much of it, so it's a balance between the Minka, the gardening, and the traveling. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. And then hopefully next time you're in the Hiroshima area, we can meet
Yeah,
up for a coffee or a walk or something.
absolutely. Julia and I both, we feel like we just scratched the surface, so we will definitely be back down there
Wonderful. And I'd love to come visit your Minka too someday.
anytime. Anytime.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for joining and for your great comments and questions today. We don't have a talk tomorrow, but on Friday, I'm talking to New Zealand guide who's based in Auckland, Louise Poppy, and we're going to talk about sustainable travel options in New Zealand and how they might inspire some more sustainable travel ideas for Japan. So kind of a new kind of talk we're trying on Friday.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.